From Montana's news leader, this is the MTN Noon News.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us on your MTN statewide news this Wednesday. I'm Jeanelle Slade. Well, COVID-19 has now claimed 42 lives across Montana. Today, the state reports 2 more deaths, both men. Sweetgrass County has lost its first resident to coronavirus complications. A man in his 80s died in a hospital. The second victim, a Yellowstone County man in his 60s, died in his home yesterday. Yellowstone County's total deaths related to coronavirus, the most in the state by far, have now reached 19. Well, the state confirms another 104 positive cases today. Gallatin County with 34, Yellowstone County with 27, and Bighorn County with 15 new cases. Data also shows there are just over 1,200 active cases in Montana, with at least 52 people in the hospital. Well, this afternoon at 2 o'clock, Governor Steve Bullock plans to hold a press conference with the latest coronavirus information about testing as well. He will also address CARES Act distribution here in Montana. This will be broadcast live across all MTN stations. Well, the U.S. reported more than 1,000 coronavirus deaths yesterday for the first time in 2 weeks. California has now topped more than 400,000 infections, overtaking New York for the most cases. Chris Martinez reports from Los Angeles.
Cases are leveling off in parts of Texas, but border communities are seeing hospitals fill up. Funeral directors in a hard-hit Hidalgo County say they are running out of space to store bodies.
We normally do about maybe 6 to 10 funerals a month, and right now we're doing almost 10 a week.
According to Texas health officials, Hispanic people make up more than 40% of confirmed coronavirus cases. In California, Latinos account for more than 55% of infections. Alexandria Cubias lost her father and her sister to coronavirus just days apart.
Losing 2 members within less than a week itself, it's the hardest thing you could go through.
California now has 409,000 confirmed cases of coronavirus, overtaking New York as the state with the most infections.
I don't myself overread into the significance of that number. I look at every day as an opportunity to do more and do better with our response to COVID-19.
While California has surpassed New York in terms of cases, it still has only a fraction of the deaths, under 8,000.
Florida is now averaging more COVID-related deaths per day than any other state, 115 a day over the past week. Amid the spike, teachers in Florida paraded in cars to keep schools closed.
We're scared. We don't want to bury a student. We don't want to bury a colleague.
Florida's largest teachers union has sued the state over plans to reopen schools next month. Chris Martinez, CBS News, Los Angeles.
And the Federal Bureau of Prisons reports more than 500 women at a federal medical prison in Fort Worth, Texas, have tested positive for the virus. Well, as the pandemic pushes the country's blood supply to critically low levels, researchers are trying to find new ways to get younger people to donate blood. Now, the donor pool is aging, and younger people just don't seem to be stepping up to fill the gaps. For decades, the supply has relied on donors being motivated simply to help others. A recent study shows the idea of paying people to give blood. That's already being done for plasma donations, but not for whole blood. The study finds about 80% of college-age people would be willing to give blood if they were paid. July is usually the beginning of fire season across Montana, but we've already seen a number of blazes this year. Experts are now predicting fire conditions could be more common this season. One factor that can contribute to a more extreme fire season is what's called fuel load. The longer and heavier rains the state sees early in the year, the more plants in the grass grow. Well, as those plants and grass dry out, we head into July, the more ideal the conditions are for fires. But there are things you can do to help stop fires from starting, especially this time of year. It's important to keep an eye on fire danger reports and red flag warnings.
Never pull off the side of the road with a vehicle that's been ran, especially in the high grass or unmowed or unkempt areas. If you do happen to go camping, make sure you're following fire alert and whether or not burning is allowed. Always extinguish fires with the proper procedure. If it's too hot to touch, it's too hot to walk away from.
Disaster and Emergency Services asks that you monitor its website and Facebook page to stay up to date on current fire conditions. Well, it is certainly hot and dry today, so we're going to check in with meteorologist Ed McIntosh right now to see how it's looking out there.
Jeanelle, this is the time of the year when we always start talking about the heat and worried about kids and pets in vehicles, and we're going to show you a little reason why. Shortwave radiation, that's the visible rays from the sun, go right through the car window, and then they start to heat up everything inside the car. That converts it over to long-wave radiation, which can't escape back through the windows. So that heating process continues to fuel as more sunshine comes in, and that heat continues to heat up the upholstery and the dashboard and everything else, making it much hotter within the vehicle. So we could see some of those temperatures rise quickly this afternoon, and inside a half an hour, temperatures outside could feel like the 90s, but perhaps the 120s inside the vehicle. Take a look at the forecast details coming up.
All right, thanks so much, Ed. Well, organizers of the Helena Farmers Market say they will continue with the weekly event even after they did not receive a permit. Well, last week, the Farmers Market's coronavirus mitigation plan was rejected by Lewis and Clark County Public Health. The market board chose to proceed without the permit, blocking Fuller Street in Helena during its normal operating hours on Saturday. Now, Helena police took note of the violations and submitted them to Helena City and Lewis and Clark County attorneys, but took no action to shut the market down. They say their first focus is on education rather than enforcement. Well, the governor's Grizzly Bear Advisory Council is close to wrapping up its final recommendations for bear management and conservation in Montana, but there are still a few topics they haven't formed a consensus on, including hunting. MTN's John Riley reports.
The governor's Grizzly Bear Advisory Council met for the 13th time this week, with the big topics including where the bears should be living in Montana and the role of hunting regarding grizzlies. On Tuesday, the council focused on recommendations for fish, wildlife, and parks should there ever be a hunting season. However, they were not able to form a consensus one way or another in regards to hunting.
We knew that going in. I mean, we have such a diverse group of people on council. We knew the first day that we weren't going to come to consensus on hunting.
The 18-person Citizen Advisory Council is composed of biologists, ranchers, hunters, conservationists, educators, business owners, and more. Joe Perry, founding member of Montana Sportsman Alliance, told MTN that if a hunting season was developed, it would need to be done the right way.
If they are able to come up with a season, it has to be very tightly controlled, very highly monitored, and precise in its location. It has to be done very carefully. The eyes of the world are upon us.
Even with the division on hunting, the Advisory Council has been able to agree on many subjects. Members agree there needs to be more education and outreach regarding grizzlies and help landowners prevent bear conflicts.
It is clear to everyone in the world, or at least in Montana, that more education, outreach, and prevention is absolutely necessary in order for us to be able to live with bears and for bears to be able to live with us.
The document by the council is ultimately just recommendations to the state, and the decision will be left with FWP and elected officials. But Bradley hopes that the document will be of great use to those that will be making the decisions on the future of grizzly bears in Montana. Reporting from Helena, John Riley, MTN News.
Thanks, John. Up next on your new news, 2 Montana companies are on the rebound after coming together to serve the community. We'll find out their recipe for success. But first, meteorologist Ed McIntosh is in next with your statewide forecast.